Hey there, you film fans. My name is Jeff.
I'm Dave.
I'm John, and welcome back to The Love of Cinema, a pod in which we'll challenge one another to discuss movies, both new and old, with a strictly positive critical eye.
Hell yeah. We talk positively about movies. None of these stuffy critic podcasts here.
Positive.
We love to love movies, people. So every time we say something negative or stupid about a film, you're going to hear this sound.
You'll hear it in a second.
That means...
That sound. Wait for it. Wait for the sound.
There it is.
Oh!
Yeah. That means we're drinking. Apparently that means wine for me tonight, but mostly beer. And you should drink along with us too.
So pour yourselves a glass and let's give it up for a film we should love and a film that apparently a lot of people didn't love.
Did you say a film we should love?
Yes.
A film to love. We should love a film. Oh my gosh. That's right. We're talking about two films, people. Two films. You saw them in the episode title, but we're going to talk about them after we do our quick round of shout outs. John!
Shout outs. As always, we have a beer sponsor. His name is Carlos Barroso. His handle is C Barroso Bar 2019. Check it out on Instagram. That is CBARROZOBAR 2019. And as always, the music you hear on this episode and every motherfucking episode is provided by the artist Dasein. That is Dasein, DASEIN. If you're digging the music, head on over to soundcloud.com/Dasein-artist and you can download everything for free. Get on that shit and download it. We always want to encourage all of our listeners to please like, love, review, rate, subscribe, fuck us, do whatever they fucking can on all of the handles. It is at the love.
Do we always encourage our
I encourage it. This is a consensual, positive podcast at the Love of Cinema pod on every single platform except for Twitter. We're just at the Love of Cinema there. I do want to give a quick thank you, and I'm sure Jeff and Dave will join me. We crossed the 3,000 downloads bar this past week. Yes, we are now sitting right now at 3,199 downloads. Somebody get out there and make it a perfect 3,200 for me, please.
Download a show. Not only that, it's show 50.
Thank you so much, though.
Show 50. We made it to show 50. And also
show 50, baby.
Ryan, who dropped in last week and was one of our co-hosts, I believe it was his birthday in Japan yesterday, so it's his birthday today here in the US.
Oh, cheers, Ryan, dude. Congrats, man. Happy birthday.
Cheers, Ryan. Oh my God. I hope he's watching Paddington 3 right now. Is that out?
No, it's not out.
People,
Is that out?
But he will.
Okay. Yes. And of course we're getting some engagements too on YouTube and Twitch and elsewhere where you can find our video content if you'd like to see what we look like making this here drinking podcast. And you can watch our cheeks redden and our eyes start to swell up because the beer is very real.
That's exactly
and you wonder why the rants and the rambles start to happen.
With that hungry for your attention, we even have a Discord server. If you're into that sort of thing.
Yeah. Correct. Yes. So we're going to be on...
There's no one in it. You can be first.
Oh, my... We're going to be on Clubhouse soon. Okay. So we're going to be talking about The Midnight Sky, directed by and starring George Clooney first. And then we are going to be talking about The New Mutants as episode 7 of our It Was the Best of Film, It Was the Worst of Film series. This is the series we've been doing where we pair the so-called best films of the year, which may or may not be voted into Oscar categories. And we pair them with potential Razzie films that were not treated so favorably by critics. So we get a little bit of the best and a little bit of the worst.
Or the internet
of the film
in general.
Year 2020. Yeah, exactly. It's also a way for us to make sure that we remind ourselves that movies did happen in 2020 and talk about them a little bit.
Yeah, they managed to make movies in 2020 and people still shat all over them.
Yeah. This was a critically tough year. I mean, how many people watched The Office for the 10th time and then immediately shat on the first movie they saw come out in 2020? So before we get into it, though, let's do a quick round of what you've been watching. Dave, what have you been watching this week?
I had a little bit of a slow week. I realized I'd never finished Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., all this inspirational Marvel rewatching I'm doing. I'm going through the last season of that, and I, of course... Yesterday Friday they dropped the new episode of WandaVision and everybody lost their motherfucking minds with a catchy tune that gets in everyone's head and was streaming on Twitter for 24 hours. That's a thing. I love it. Watch the show from the start. If you tuned out, go back and give it a chance because, oh God, it gets so good.
Nice.
Really? Nice. I'm almost done with The West Wing. I started a documentary series on the Comedy Store, the legendary comedy. Yeah, it's kind of like the Improv. Started in New York and moved to LA, and the Comedy Store started in LA, and it's kind of like the watershed. You got to pass through there. It's kind of the Law and Order SVU of New York actors for comics.
Yeah,
pretty cool. Yeah, I'm enjoying it so far. I'm only 2 episodes in. I also watched another feature documentary on. It's called The Cutting Edge, and it kind of discusses the history of film editing and film editors over the ages. It was pretty cool. I enjoyed that as well. It was on Stars. Yeah, that's it.
Those guys that if you piss them off, they can break your film.
Mm-hmm. I've also been listening. Let me give a quick shout out. I've also been listening to tons and tons and tons of the Team Deacons podcast. I think I'm totally caught up now. So shout out to Roger and James Deacons. That's been very informative, really cool. It's been fun to make a film list based on some things that they've made and their guests have made. It makes me want to go back and rewatch some stuff. So that's a great podcast for film lovers.
I'm the damn Deacon super fan on the group. How are you ahead of me on this thing?
I don't know, man. I don't know. I'm digging it. Yeah.
Wild. Well, we had an extra day this week because we recorded on Saturday last week for Valentine's Day. And so this is the 25th year anniversary of Happy Gilmore, which came out on February 16th, 1996. And my lady friend was not so interested in that. So we watched the beginning of Billy Madison, and we're going to finish that probably tonight, which is basically the 26th anniversary because that came out February of 1995. And I think I can talk her into, hey, do you think that was fun? Why don't we go right into Happy Gilmore? That's my plan. We also watched
if it helps sell it, Happy Gilmore is the only time my grandfather's ever laughed at swearing.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
nice.
He's not one. He was never one for profanity in the movies, and the scene where he just misses the putt and loses his shit in the background on the TV, and they're just bleeping every second word.
That's your home.
Yeah,
Are you too good for your home?
Tears down the man's face. So yeah.
Oh, it's so good. Yeah, John and I tried to watch it with. I guess it was it you, Dave, or Al? And it was Al because I ruined the movie because I was quoting the movie as it was happening in real time. I couldn't help myself. It's so good.
Dick.
I did watch another 2020 film called Uncle Frank, which is available on Amazon Prime, written and directed by Academy Award winner Alan Ball, who wrote the screenplay for American Beauty and created True Blood and 6 Feet Under. Pretty good film, LGBTQ, positive film, really, really good ideas. You know, ultimately, it was a film. It felt like a film, had a cheesy ending, but it's a good time. It was a good watch. Not going to be up for any of these awards, but that doesn't mean that it's not worth watching. Yeah. I started... That's my workout show with Bryan Cranston. Very heavy. I hope that it can carry me for 10 hours because 10 hours is a long time. Ed Burns can give me, the majority of the Vietnam War in 10 hours. So let's see how they do. It's heavy so far. It's good stuff. And Chloe had family over that loved RuPaul's Drag Race. So we're watching RuPaul UK, which I'd seen the American show, and this is better. I like the UK better. So I'm in. I'm rooting for Lawrence Chaney and Bimini. That's what's up.
Nice.
Did I mention? I forgot we recorded on Saturday last week. Did I say that I watched My Octopus Teacher last week? Do you guys remember that?
No, but I just thought about that today because I saw it this summer and I thought about the ending. Basically, the ending.
I have a friend who's writing. Every night he writes freelance for a couple different film journals, and he's writing a piece on that. I finally got around to watching it last week after we recorded, and I was deeply moved. I don't know if anybody else has seen that, but. Really cool story. Really, the music, the score was so unique and interesting. I thought it was very powerful. Definitely going to recommend that documentary on Netflix, My Octopus Teacher.
You know, in Harold and Kumar, when someday everybody's gonna wake up and turn around and say goodbye, comes on the radio and they're like, this song
Wilson
sucks.
Phillips.
Like, this is so lame. Yeah, and then by like halfway through the song, they're like crying and rocking out. It's the same thing as the Tommy Boy effect. That's what I felt like with the Octopus Teacher. I was like, this is so stupid. Yeah. This is so lame. And then like halfway through, I'm like weeping at this guy and his weird relationship with this octopus. And his son, who's like, why is my dad liking the octopus more than me? So he starts going scuba diving with him. Anyway, we are not an octopus podcast, people. We're a movie podcast. So it was the best of film. It was the worst of film. Now, I'm going to go ahead and say straight up, this is a really funny week for us because if you just look at the ratings and reviews, these films are very similar. So our best. So if I were to show you, for instance, one film has, here, follow me, on IMDb a 5.3, a 43 Metascore, and a 35% Rotten Tomatoes.
Ouch.
It's really hard to know which film because the other film has a 5.6, a 58, and a 51, but an audience score of 26. I know that's a lot of numbers, and if you're driving or if you're my dad on your bike, it's hard to follow. Long story short, The Midnight Sky, which is our Oscar it's going to be nominated for Oscars, but it doesn't have great reviews. So that's our preface for this going in. It is George Clooney, directed, and he stars as Augustine. This is based on the book Good Morning Midnight by Lily Brooks Dalton. And the story is in this post-apocalyptic tale, which I believe is 2047. Great. In 2047. That's how long we've got, folks. Yeah, that's how long we got. A lonely scientist, Dr. Augustine, Dr. George Clooney, he's racing to stop other fellow astronauts who are returning home from a trip to from a mysterious moon of Jupiter that may house all the essentials for life so that Earth could potentially move there. They're returning home to Earth not knowing there's a global catastrophe here, and there is a little bit of a blackout. So he is trying to stop them from returning as everybody else on Earth is leaving. If that sounds a little confusing, you're right.
Yeah.
I don't know what to tell you. We have no idea where these people are going when they're leaving Earth, and we don't know why these people.
They're not leaving. They're going to die.
They're going to die. I thought they were leaving.
No, they're going to try and live underground, but there was no. Yeah, there's one little paragraph that spells it out. It's like, yeah, you can survive underground for a certain period of time, but after that, no, it's where everyone's dead. So there is no.
I was trying to read the IMDb thing here, and it's basically it's like, I don't know what to tell you, man. It's George Clooney and there's some space stuff. Go get him.
Yeah, it's a comedy romp. It really is.
It's sure. Yeah. Anyway, what it really is there's two different storylines happening at the same time, which is George Clooney, who believes he's the last person, basically that can contact anybody beyond in this post-apocalyptic world, where it really does seem like, because they show you some views from space of Earth, it looks like Earth there's nothing left. There's clouds of whatever, and they're kind of screwed. And then the other half. Yeah, the other half of the movie-ish, maybe about a third of the movie, is this spaceship Ether. On that spaceship are a couple scientists. You have Felicity Jones, David Oyelowo. You have Damian Bashir, Tiffany Boone as Maya, and I'm gonna go ahead and say this movie did one thing right, which is there's a rule in film where if you want to make your movie better, there's one thing you can do, and that is you cast Kyle Chandler. Just cast Kyle Chandler. The movie's gonna be better, and they cast Kyle Chandler, and he's on this spaceship, and you know what? Good job, Kyle Chandler, who had worked with George Clooney on Catch 22, the series for Hulu. So that storyline of what's happening on the spaceship coming back to Earth, and George Clooney trying to contact them, that's pretty much the two different storylines going on. I'm going to leave it there. Who wants to take it away?
I'll let you guys go first on this one.
John, go ahead.
I'd kind of heard the same thing that you kind of opened up when you were talking about it. They're like, I waited until this week to watch it, so I'd heard some very mixed things, kind of similar to the little things we mentioned last week. Not in our major discussion, but Jeff had watched it, so we kind of went back and forth at the beginning of the show last week. This movie was fine. I didn't feel very strongly against it, even though I have things that in my head that I think probably are why it didn't work. But I just don't know if any of them mattered enough to me to say this was not enjoyable and you shouldn't watch it. I still think it was a fine. How long is this? A fine. Help me out here, guys. This is a 1 hour and 58 minute. I know it feels long. It didn't bother me that much. However, that being said, I do think that there were some traps of sci-fi films that George Clooney and his screenwriter fell into. I kind of want to leave it there for right now because I'm curious if it'll come up organically. I don't want it just to sound like I'm bitching about the script and stuff, because I think there were a lot of different issues. But for me, it started with the writing. Spoiler alert, because as always, when we're talking about these movies, especially it was the best of film, worst of film, we're talking about current movies. So don't listen to this yet unless you don't want to hear us talk about spoilers. There was a huge plot point to this movie where there was a young girl that he finds in this place that he's in, this scientific observational area in Antarctica. And she's a huge piece of his story, the one that the first story A, we'll call it, on Earth with George Clooney. And it turns out to have a very specific connection to the B storyline with the people that are in the air, in space. And I
spoiler
did not,
right off the bat. Great.
Yeah, I mean,
like
there is a connection there.
movie.
It is but it's like the whole movie, for me, the whole movie bent on that positive attitude that I kind of opened with. It did come crashing down a little bit when they finally reveal who she is. And because I don't think they introduced her well. I thought they handled her okay once she was a part of his life. I don't think they introduced her correctly to make me think that, oh, okay, that's what that was. It was too literal for me. I don't know if they used enough of the yeah.
I feel like we're going to be
I really did. I didn't mind it.
I feel like we're going to be middle ground, so I'm being brutal on the buzzer tonight.
No, go for it, dude.
Okay. I'll give Dave his wish, and I'll delay it a little bit. Although I kind of agree with John. Even after the second time watching this movie, the first time I felt like it was a bunch of different space movies thrown into one, and the one thing that was missing to make it its own unique space film was whatever this film is supposed to be about. I don't know what the big question was, but George Clooney's a really smart guy. I wanted to walk out of Monuments Men, if I'm honest with you, and but I like Catch 22, which he didn't solely direct. So I don't know what his directing style is, but he's a very intelligent guy. So I know he was really trying to ask the big questions. But it's a fine film. But yeah, you're right. The things that are supposed to be clever, which time you have to be clever, like who is this little girl that is with him? And when you know the answer to that, I would feel like it's like a Sixth Sense thing where it's like, oh my God, the audience is this out. And I feel like it just went on really long. So that by the time you figured out who it was, you either A, didn't care, or B, you were like, ugh, you know what I mean? But if you're just watching this movie because you want to see a George Clooney movie and you want to see some really cool visuals in space, I don't know why we needed the asteroid things to hit all the time, other than they were really fun to film. I don't know what they actually did to the story of the movie, but it was a nice enough 2 hours. I just think
that's a screenwriting beat. It's known as the whiff of death.
It's just if people, well, you can talk about that more for sure, but all I'll say is I think a lot of people, like I watched this with my parents, they felt the same way. They didn't love it. I don't think, sorry if I'm speaking out of turn, mom and dad, but it's just a fine movie with some cool things to look at. And they do cool shit. You know what? Felicity Jones is pregnant in real life, so they made her character pregnant in this. Like, so there's like good stuff. Like, it's a good group of people. It's a great cast.
You know, the one thing I loved about that,
the story falls flat, but it's well.
Okay, they wrote her pregnancy in, but not once did any male character go, "You can't do that in your condition," or anything.
I wonder if they had to have talked about that, right? You can't do a spacewalk when you're pregnant.
You can. Apparently, she did.
But that seems like they should talk about it, right? I mean, but then again, they did, I think they did, like they let David Oyelowo, who is playing her partner in this film, act that a little bit. Where he's basically like, can you do the catwalk? Can you do it? And she's like, of course I can do it. And he's just like, well, I'm not going to argue with you. You know what I mean? Like, even though he's the captain of the ship, I felt like they.
I actually really appreciated that piece of writing. I would describe this as Gravity meets The Revenant with elements of the Martian Chronicles thrown in. And if you haven't heard of Martian Chronicles, it was a TV event back in the, I want to say 80s or 90s, where people set up shop on Mars. They were living and they were about to come back to Earth, and there was a massive nuclear war, and they realized they were stuck on Mars. And Mars is inhabited as well by
It's a Ray Bradbury short story book, right?
Yeah, they made a TV series about it, and there's one image where they're looking through the telescope at Earth, and you just see the mushroom clouds start to bloom everywhere, and it all goes brown, and it terrified the fuck out of me as a kid. So like when I saw the Earth like that, it was like flashback. But for me, I feel like I knew what I was getting myself in for, and I was like, this is really slow, but then I found myself not minding. Nice. I was good. I picked up on the significance of the little girl in the first, I would say, 20 minutes.
Yeah. I mean, when she wasn't talking, you're like, okay, there's something else going on here.
And
it's one of three tropes.
I called that, and then just moved on and enjoyed the ride. And
nice.
I feel like there was enough in this to carry it through. Like, everyone forgets that sci-fi can be this pace. Like, I feel like big budget blockbusters have ruined us for the fact that you don't have to have action every 5 seconds. You can have a slow scene, and you can have like actual acting and emotion in a scene, and not like it is part of sci-fi.
I do think that, shout out to that Roger Deakins, James Deakins podcast. They were interviewing Bradley, the guy who filmed Selma and Arrival, and somebody look his name up. But anyway, he was talking about when they were filming Arrival, how, they were asking a general question about camera movement in that, because there's two very distinct styles of cinematography in Arrival. But everyone who loves that movie, and what they were trying to build to, was, how did you establish such a personal connection to characters, specifically her, Amy Adams' character? And he was talking about him and Denis Villeneuve were just consistently, the only thing that seemed to be talked about all the time was not a big technical conversation. It was a emotional conversation about, this movie will not work if you do not have her point of view every fucking second. And I think when you're trying to do a very personal mankind's perspective on sci-fi, and not like a giant epic sci-fi that's going to deal more with the literal hard science fiction of new technology and stuff. This is more about, how does mankind survive in spite of itself? We love that question in sci-fi. It's fun to ask. I think if I had to pinpoint what did not work for me in this film, it's that the stakes weren't high enough on the ship. I'm even willing to forgive what happened to George Clooney with the girl, because I agree with Jeff and Dave. I got it quickly too. I think you're supposed to get it quickly, that what she is to him. So you can kind of let that go. What would have turned the screw for me is if I didn't think it was going to be able, without giving anything away, is if I did not think the people on the ship were going to be able to get through this, whether it was from human conflict or the stakes were so high physically and literally that their protocol and all the stuff we were just kind of alluding to fell through the cracks and they started doubting themselves. I felt a little too safe on the ship. And this whole movie builds to this point where they make a big decision on the ship, and kind of some of the crew decides to no longer be part of the crew in a certain way. I don't want to give away the actual details of that. And
I am going to give away the actual details of that. I'm going to bring it up later because I have a real problem with that.
Okay. So that's kind of a perfect example to me, though, that like, I didn't care when they did that, when they finally two of them decide to leave. And the question was supposed to be heightened, I think, because of that. Like, can mankind survive even when literally the numbers of people in the crew, half of the crew decides, no, I don't even want to survive, and half of the crew decides I want to. I didn't have enough drama in the crew building up to that moment for me to give a shit about what George Clooney was fighting for back on Earth. And right. It's not that I didn't give a shit at all. I was caring enough, but I wanted to be distraught. I wanted to be convinced that his relationship with the girl on Earth may be a total lie, because if what I was thinking was correct, the people on the ship were never going to be able to survive this. And he never made me feel like there was no chance of survival. I thought they were going to figure it out the whole time. I guess like Jeff said with the meteors,
like when the
I think that was bullshit.
When the meteors are hitting and the walls are fucking rippling, I'm like, all right, someone might go here.
And I agree with that, but that's a physical, physical obstacle. I wanted, if you're going to ask the question about can mankind survive in spite of mankind's faults, and then you're going to let meteors be the obstacle, that felt a little cheap to me. I wanted to have more drama. I wanted to see the crew break down emotionally, and it never happened. They were fucking pros from beginning to end.
I'll level with you a little bit before I send it over to Dave about what he was asking about, which is, so George Clooney's mission is to tell this spaceship to not come back to Earth. So I guess, therefore, they're supposed to go back to Jupiter.
Yes.
Right.
But we didn't... I don't know if they really... Because if they like died, yeah, it would have sucked. But like, is the baby supposed to represent the future of humanity? Is that sort
so.
Of like, is that supposed to be what we're doing? So
I mean, that's
ultimately what if the spaceship went down, it would have sucked. But I don't even know if that, like in The Martian, like I know it's another example that gets brought up with this kind of stuff is we want him to come back. We want him to come home. Mission is so fucking simple. We want him to come back. And then they circle the Earth, right? The spaceship that's returning that left him behind circles to come back to get him. And they go full Apollo 13 on that. I'm literally just throwing space things because that's what you do when you see this movie. But I don't know if that point was necessarily made in such a way that was like, this baby is the only hope that humanity has.
Yes,
and
exactly.
so therefore, yeah, you're right. There are obstacles coming home, but ultimately, and I know this sounds droll, but like, what happens if the spaceship blows up? And that's why Alexandre Desplat wrote the fuck out of this score, because he was like, okay, I don't know if this cut is really selling it, so I'm going to be the heart and soul of this goddamn movie.
I mean,
that score, man,
that was my biggest problem was the fact that like everybody but the mother and father got off the ship. I mean, the unpleasant truth hiding behind the way they resolved it is that there's
they're going to go back to Jupiter and then what?
For humanity to survive, there's going to be a whole bunch of incest going on.
There probably was initially. There probably was. But
I didn't even think about it.
I mean, mitochondrial Eve.
Oh my God, Dave!
Some woman in Kenya gave birth to all of us, and all of her siblings fucked each other. That's basically what happened. But
yeah, like
I can see this at a film festival, and Dave asked them. He says, "Hey, I'm just curious. Who's the incest gonna be between to revive humanity?"
Yeah,
who's
begatting this?
And by the way, John, that was Bradford Young before. Bradford Young.
Thank you, Bradford Young. Cinematographer for Arrival.
From a perspective of like visuals, though, there was some beautiful stuff in this. The targeted dissolves.
They're going to be nominated for shit. Go ahead.
The targeted dissolves between the spaceship and the snow, and like them in the snow and stuff like that. The production design on the ship for me was fucking amazing. Like that thing looks magical, and it's a design you don't see normally. And straight away, I picked like when they do she's climbing up the ladder and then she just flicks herself into space. I'm like, okay, we're on a revolving ship, and then they show you the outside, and everything's revolving everywhere. That sort of stuff. The thing that I really loved was the fucking panels. All the computer panels everywhere. Like someone sat there and designed these. Yeah. And
that's cool, because with music, for instance, when they play songs, it's always weird when a movie set 30 years in the future is playing current songs. So it's cool that they at least tried to make the look not necessarily seem futuristic, but just not feel like today. And I feel like they did. The inside of the spaceship was gorgeous, actually. So that was, it was weird that we had like the Clooney story, and then on the ship was an ensemble story. So it's weird that like you didn't just have his and hers, or his and his, or hers and hers point of view. You had his and theirs collectively. I guess Oyelowo and Felicity Jones sort of shared that, but the ship itself was a place that I would watch the spin-off of just the ship. But yeah, sorry.
Also, the design of the walls, like the design of the framework and the walls, matched the handle of his shotgun that he had on Earth. There was like little things like that. Right. But the computer panels, I actually sat through the credits to find out it was a company called CompuHire did them, because like these guys at the end in the credits, where it just stays on them and forever, and the credits are happening over them, like they're touching things on screen and it's reacting. Now, I'm pretty sure they were pre-designed and captured in camera, but that means that those were pre-designed as actual working touch panels. So, like, obviously, it just lit up when people touched it, stuff like that. And that level of detail to me is something that's worthy of mention, because that's a really good, like, technical achievement for just adding to a sci-fi.
Yeah.
What'd you guys think of the flashbacks? Do you think they were?
The flashbacks were, their only point really was to set up the ending. Like the resolve of his story.
To set up the reveal.
Yeah, that was the only point of those flashbacks, I think.
They had to have talked about it. So to be clear, because this is coming up in a lot of critiques of this movie, there are flashbacks where another actor is playing young George Clooney, but they end up using his voice. And so it's like, do you do the Irishman? Do you just cast another actor and trust the audience is smart enough? What do you do? Because you can't watch that and not sit there and go, it's another actor playing young George Clooney, but they're using his voice. So does it pay off? Like, is it worth knowing that an audience, every single person watching this movie is going to have that experience? So do you guys think that
was the guy who plays Spock in Discovery too?
Oh shit! Yeah, I thought he seemed familiar.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I agree with Dave. I feel like it was just so. It had such a specific.
There wasn't enough of it to
reason
feel like
for being there.
There was like story A and story B, and then there was like tiny little bit of story A.
Yeah, it was. Right. I could see the breadcrumbs. You know, it was a little too obvious for that it was going to create a service for one of the other stories or both of them, and so I kind of felt like every time they would flash back, I was like, all right, what am I learning now so that I'll be able to put this together? So the mystery that was supposed to be unseen, or seen, not heard, I guess, if we're going to allude to her mute lack of speaking, basically. I think I do want to make one last point that I think I've talked about this before. I think a lot of contemporary movies are starting to look very similar. I mean that technically. Again, with the story of can mankind survive when mankind has already failed itself? And if technology is always a tool, obviously we're talking about sci-fi, but if technology is always a tool in our evolution, and we were supposed to have faith that we had had enough technology to achieve his younger self's goal of finding a planet that's in the Goldilocks zone, that's in our solar system, and actually being able to go there and actually achieve it. It's not millions of light years away. We can actually do this, and we created the tech to achieve that. I think George Clooney may have done himself a disservice by presenting Earth, contemporary Earth, and the ship with such a technological ease that I kind of stopped asking the question. That was another specific thing that kind of made me stop asking the question, are they going to be okay? I think if he had filmed it in a slightly more realistic look, and as much I agree with you, Dave, like it was cool seeing all that technology and the panel work was really nice, but I had so much faith in the technology that I kind of stopped caring as much about whether or not the people were going to be able to do it. And since this is not a story about AI, it did rely on the people. So part of me wondered if he had filmed this way more realistically, with taking a lot of the color out of the shots, like literally just making it look a little bit more dystopian. And I think I would have been a little bit more afraid of trusting the technology that only two people were going to have to wield by the time this whole story is over. It would have made me a little more nervous. And that's a technical choice, but I could not stop thinking about it the entire time. It was so beautiful.
None of that. I got none of that. I went along for the ride. I mean, I'm a lot more forgiving on some of these sci-fi films than other people. But
love Star Trek 10. Loves the 10 Star Trek movies.
That's for you, Jeff. You said something stupid. Oh.
I just spilled, so I should probably deserve that.
I sat there and I was like, at one point I was like, okay, this is going a little slow. And every time I felt like it was going slow, he changed tack and went to like either the ship or back to the planet. And I don't know, I just felt like from a directorial standpoint, this was a pretty decent film. There's some good performances. I mean, I didn't find a problem with the ship design at all. I felt like all of that was necessary for what they were doing. My vote is, this will get some awards for possibly visual effects. My one gripe is this has been touted as an indie film.
Fuck no.
Get the fuck out of here. Like,
get out of here.
It's an indie film because it didn't have a studio behind it, but fuck off. It had a $100 million budget and ILM is doing your visual effects. You're not a fucking indie film.
You're right. And of course,
otherwise, I'm going to shoot a short next week and just give ILM a call and go, hey, you did it for George.
This is probably going to be up for visual effects because a lot of the big movies didn't come out this year, like Bond and like a lot of the other superhero movies. You had the Wonder Woman movie wasn't received as well. Tenet came out, but we're not insane. We like our health, so we haven't seen it. But Dune didn't come out. So like this is going to be up for visual effects. And since people are watching it, it might be up for best score. But anyway, the real thing about this movie,
they released the visual effects shortlist, didn't they?
They released a short list, and this is on it, obviously. Yeah. But anyway, this is about change. Right, George Clooney believes in climate change. That is apparent from this movie, and also, and I should correct you from before, John. So,
that's the tagline on the poster.
Yeah,
and I'm so sorry. This is not. It's not in Antarctica. It's in the Arctic Circle.
No, the tagline on the poster is because an inconvenient truth didn't work.
Yeah, right. Yes. And so, like how Interstellar at the beginning basically was like, these cornfields, shit, let's get out of here. Like this actually shows us like what I don't know what the catastrophic event is, but it's probably just we crossed the threshold and all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. So that's the I'm not saying that it's a fault, but like you're asking, John, you're asking all these sci-fi questions. It's for some reason they cared more about the global warming than the sci-fi. I think that would be my guess, and so that's why they didn't. But then back to what Dave was saying, the ship design they did put a lot of effort into, and I kind of like the personal touch of all the characters as a way of getting to know the characters. even though some of it maybe was a little formulaic, but like, we got to know them pretty quick. We got to see their families, we got to see, because they did like these holograms of their families so that they could feel that connection to home. If that doesn't make sense, watch the fucking movie. Yeah, I don't know. It's a fine enough film. I guess I would recommend it to people. There's a lot of other things to watch, but Dave, any final words that you want to say?
I just think like this was a good one. They used stagecraft. I do think it was a credit to their performances that when one of the characters in space was killed, they did some shit I've never seen before, like with that death.
That blood was wild. That was cool.
Like, and
sorry, I know that sounds fucked up, but it really was wild.
As soon as they took that helmet off, I was like, oh, she fucked. Like, you knew it was. It's like
the first blood, like even the way they held on her, I was like, they're holding on her too long, so something's probably wrong.
Yeah.
But then when you saw the blood, you're like, ooh, I saw that coming, and yeah, that's still surprising.
Yeah, I got squirmy.
Yeah.
So yeah.
John, any final thoughts? You wanna end on a high note or what?
Not really. It's okay. Go see it. You watch it and you email us. You reply to our handles and you let us know what you think. This movie was.
Everybody at John.
Fun.
Great cast. It's really good fun. And shout out to George. Keep fighting the good climate change fight.
Yeah, man.
Great. Well, we all believe in climate change here. So with that, we're going to send you off to our break so I can take a quick pee. And we are going to be back to talk about our potential Razzie film, which is the new Mutants. See you soon, Phil. And we're back.
We're back.
Back, baby.
All right, people. We just talked about The Midnight Sky, which was supposed to be it was the best of film segment, which it was our best of film segment.
It was.
I don't know if it was the best of film of 2020, but it was.
I mean,
there was some really good shit
That's
there.
the thing with these potential nominations. It's like we're going to have varying responses to them, and that's okay.
Yeah, give it a watch. I enjoyed watching it.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about our potential Razzie film, and just to remind everybody, we do not make the lists ourselves. These are things that we saw online. We love odds makers. People tend to bet with their money and things that they actually will think. Actually, what they think will actually make money. Sorry, that's the way I wanted to phrase that. So with the exception of GameStop after it had passed $1,000, usually people put their money in the right place, and people are betting on this movie to be nominated for some Razzies. So what's funny about that is this film, The New Mutants, which is about 5 young mutants who are just discovering their abilities while they're being held in a secret facility against their will. They're planning their escape, but they all have been convinced, and therefore they believe that they are not ready to exist in the real world because they don't have proper control of their powers. A lot of them do have some backstories that are violent that we find out about in this film, some of whom have great regret about how their power was used beyond their control in a way that harmed people. So some of them are almost glad that they're in a facility that seems to be looking out for them. However, this film, which is being pitched as a teenage horror movie, it sort of doesn't go full insane asylum, but it has that feel of like we're stuck in this insane asylum, and for some reason, all of the characters start seeing their darkest secrets and their deepest secrets in the darkest moments of their pasts actually coming to life, not just in their dreams, but with having real life effects and consequences, such as tattooing engaging and walls getting destroyed and these demons are coming back to life inside this facility, which yes, sounds horrifying, and that is what the movie is meant to be. What's crazy about this movie being nominated for Razzies and such is that this is one of the better young ensembles that you can assemble as far as a casting standpoint. So this movie, which I hope Dave knows a little bit more about than me, started filming years ago, maybe in like 2017 or 2018.
Dude, this is the only film to have more release date changes than Tenet.
yeah. And of course, they decided.
I'm pretty
to
sure it's a Guinness record.
And they decided in the pandemic. It was just really, really fun. This came out August 28th, 2020. Which we're always going to remember as 6 months into a deadly pandemic when no theaters should be open. We all rented this movie. So for anybody who hasn't seen it yet, because you didn't want to spend the money on it, I understand that. It's $5.99 right now, which was a just drop because it was $20 forever, which Dave was keeping an eye on for a long time. But soon enough, it'll be even cheaper than $5.99.
Funny enough, I did notice even Tenet is $5.99 this now when I was looking. So I know
don't
I'm watching
you
this
dare
week.
talk us into watching this goddamn movie. Okay, hold on. Fantastic. So just if we go back to 2017, 2018, Game of Thrones is wrapping up. So Maisie Williams now gets a really big role. She plays Wolfbane, whose main character is Rain Sinclair, the character name. You have Anya Taylor-Joy, who we now know as the Queen's Gambit herself, who was also in Emma this year and Split. And she's a huge star now. She's nominated, I think, for 2 Golden Globes this year. Anya Taylor-Joy. You have Charlie Heaton, who plays Jonathan in Stranger Things, aka the older brother of Will, who's dating the girl Brenda or something. I don't know. You have
it's been a while since we had Stranger Things.
So those 3 are huge stars, and then you also have Blue Hunt, who is in some things you've seen. Alice Braga is in a bunch of things, including I Am Legend, and Henry Zaga, who's in 13 Reasons Why, among other things. So there's 6 people in this facility. You have 1 supervisor, which, yes, that's a hole in this movie, that there's only 1 adult. And then you have 5 kids, at least 3 of whom are really big stars. So exciting. And they're all mutants. So these are all people that have origin stories that have been published. So it is definitely meant to be part of a larger anthology. This was definitely meant to be chapter 1 of a film series, for sure, to help us get our next generation of X-Men and Disney Plus fans like ready to go. This is definitely
it was supposed to be a trilogy.
Yeah, and it reads like they could even gone farther if they wanted to, but that's what it's supposed to be. So, okay, teenage horror film, 5 young mutants stuck with the Dr. Reyes, who believes she's trying to help understand their powers before she can release them. And we don't know who the superior that she's going to release them to after this. They want it to be Professor X, obviously, which we find out later may not be the case. That's the setup. Who wants to take it from there?
Dave, was this the second time you saw this?
It's the second time I saw this.
You paid full price for this?
No. I watched it straight after Wonder Woman. Actually, when we watched Wonder Woman in 1984. And I actually, when I watched it that time, I enjoyed it more than I did Wonder Woman. So,
yeah.
Hey,
how was it the
buzz
second
yourself
watch?
or not? What do you think? What do you think? Are you gonna buzz yourself?
I did try to, but I had the wrong window selected. Hang on, there you
go. Okay, there it is.
I don't know. I think everyone knows the truth about that.
Okay, sorry.
Back to New Mutants.
Yeah. On a rewatch, it was still pretty good. Like it didn't. I didn't lose too much. In fact, there's little things for you to find if you're one of those mega Marvel fans. But to be honest, the fact that this was a Marvel movie, I think, was the biggest disservice to it.
I agree, dude. I agree. I think this was if you had sat me down and said this is a longer pilot to a CW series, I would have been like, God, this is going to be cool.
Yeah.
The fact that it was pitched as a movie, I took a little bit away from me. I was like, there's something missing about there's something less cinematic about it. But if this was the opening to a series, I would be like, this is probably going to be a very successful show. I don't know that. I liked it. I just didn't love it as a standalone movie.
And we've come across this before. Like this, I can see what Josh Boone was going for. Like he made references to being inspired by Nightmare on Elm Street 3, The Dream Warriors. And it's exactly like you can see Dream Warriors like homages in there. There's a little bit of Buffy thrown in there for good measure. And it almost got there, but if you're following the history of this film, it was messed with at almost every level by the studio. They held it up, then they decided, no, we're going to do reshoots. We'd want to change it, and so they brought someone in to rewrite it, and then they rewrote it, and then they didn't like that, and then they were like, okay, we're going to release it in this cut down form, and then they didn't like that, and after about 4 or 5 changes, they end up handing it back to him, and he goes, well, why don't we just make the movie I intended to make? And they're like, and then the Disney Fox merger happens, and straight away he's now owned by a studio, like the film's owned by a studio who doesn't do horror and has no idea what to do with it. And so they kind of half-ass it and don't promote it and throw it out there. And it's like, this could have been like so much better, just wrong time. And too many people fucking with it.
Let me ask this question though. Let's put our brains off to the side for a half a second. How did you feel watching the movie? How did you feel watching the movie? Did you feel disappointed? Did you feel entertained? Did you feel optimistic? Like, how did you feel watching the movie?
I felt like it was not quite what it could have been, but again, that comes from the expectation of that Marvel logo at the front. Like, you have that Marvel logo at the front, you're expecting like big blockbuster, fucking magic flying everywhere and mega special effects, and what we got was a really compacted story and a really claustrophobic little story with some like character origins and like a setup for a trilogy, and it was not what anyone would expect from a film that was billed as it was.
Yeah. What about you, John? Did you feel okay watching the movie, or did the heady stuff get in the way?
I felt okay. I think I had lower expectations, honestly, just because of some of the things that I guess some of the jokes Dave had made leading up to this. So I don't think I was nearly as disappointed as, maybe some people would be who had really, who had been anticipating this for years and years and years. This isn't really my cup of tea. Like, I kind of felt like I had tuned into the CW by accident, which is cool. That's fine. Like, it was okay. I do think I was very conscious of the fact that I felt like I was watching a movie made by committee, and I wasn't shocked when I did go back and read a bunch of trivia and some articles on it and stuff, and see that his initial idea, because the only thought I kept having over and over again that kept bothering me was, am I supposed to be scared? Like, is this supposed to be a horror movie, like a haunted house movie?
It was 80s
and
horror.
I think it was.
It was 80s
but I think
horror.
it was supposed to be, and I don't think we'll ever, know what he was going to try to do with it. And because of that, it felt that I think they did as good of a job as they possibly could with a product that was inevitably going to be too safe because of the interference from Disney. And I don't really know how else to say it.
Yeah. I mean, both the Fox and Disney, they both fucked with this one.
Yeah.
Which is a shame, because I do think it had a lot of potential. The acting, I'm not going to say the performances are through the roof, but I think the potential was there for.
I really like Charlie Heaton, Cannonball. I thought he was great.
Yeah. Which one is Cannonball?
He's Stranger Things. He's Stranger Things.
Yeah.
Yeah, the guy who had to tie himself to a rock and fly around in a circle.
Kentucky, as they call him in the film.
Yeah. Like, I think the only characterization I had a problem with, strangely, was Anya Taylor-Joy.
Well, and what's funny, Dave, is I agree with you, because the accent seemed a little put on. I mean, she's Russision.
Yes.
So
sure.
Yeah, she's
she's
actually the
tough.
sister of Colossus.
So wait, hold on. I'm going to say this is one good thing about the movie. So yeah, I heard about that, Dave. That's cool. I had similar feelings to both of you. This should be a series. This should have been a miniseries, or it should have been a television series, because there's no villain, there's no obstacles for almost an hour in this movie. And then, of course, the villain is within them the whole time. It's their own demons and their own nightmares, which is fine. I think that's totally doable. But we're talking 45 minutes when you don't really know what we're up against, if that makes sense. So that's why it feels like a television series. That's the pacing that we're used to. So in that point, I don't even think that's a complaint necessarily, because we're used to that now. And maybe they knew that and they're playing with that.
The thing I'm saddest about is if this was made now, it would be a Disney event Marvel series, and it'd be on Disney Plus, and it would have been a smash hit.
But just to finish what I was saying is, yes, you're right. And to finish what I was saying a second ago, though, is because what the villain really is their own personal demons, it does humanize the characters. So to give Anya Taylor-Joy some credit, Anya Taylor-Joy, that's not her name, Anya Taylor-Joy some credit, all of these characters, even the ones that came on a little strong, which she's the strongest. She's hard. She has no empathy, and that doesn't mean that she's just all of a sudden going to break down, which I saw in RuPaul's Drag Race UK, which would happen very quickly for somebody who's putting on a tight show and is sassy.
Oh wow, great
everybody.
segue,
but,
Jeff. That's for bad segues.
Hey, no. But what I mean is, because you see their deepest, darkest fears, which can be cheesy, and maybe it was cheesy, and it wasn't scary, which is too bad, because the only one that was scary was psychological, which was the priest. The priest was the most scary. But anyway, we can break down their fears in a second. But Anya Taylor-Joy, once she started having to go through that, you can tell that this is somebody that is aware of what a good actor is. And I don't know if she's gone full Meryl yet. The Queen's Gambit's great. Emma's great. She hasn't quite gone there yet. She's not that yet. But I don't think she could really do Kramer versus Kramer yet. Obviously not a knock on her.
Don't get me wrong. I had no problem with her acting. I had a problem with the characterization she was given.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's fine. But long story short is that all of these characters get humanized in a way, so that whether or not you root for them, they all do feel three-dimensional by the end. That doesn't make the movie a great movie, but it makes the characters likable enough that I would be curious to see another one.
I think that is actually, I might push back a little bit on that, is that I think that's exactly what made it feel like it was supposed to be serialized. We have a pilot episode to humanize these people, so you're going to want to tune back in for episode 2. So I forgot to mention this when we were talking about movies you watched. Right after this finished, I read for a little bit just to see, I didn't even know if this was connected to
It's not a book podcast,
to X-Men. I was reading the trivia and some articles. I didn't know if this was directly connected to X-Men until they mentioned that in the movie, and I was like, okay. So then I started the first X-Men just because that first scene is so good. And I kind of got into the exposition a little bit. And I was just trying to think, I know they had way more money, so let's just try to put money aside. But why is Bryan Singer's first X-Men, the first 20 minutes, why is it so fucking captivating? Because technically that was the first really successful superhero movie. It came out in 2000. This was before Batman Begins, before the Marvel journey.
And it opens in the Holocaust, John.
And it opens in the fucking Holocaust. So why is there, what's the difference between the way that Josh Boone chose to try to humanize these characters, which is I don't mean this offensively, but it's a very specific type of character of humanizing. He did it the way the CW would do it, versus using cinematic visual storytelling that Bryan Singer tried to use, that I thought he used very well in establishing who first is Magneto, obviously with that initial Holocaust flashback, but then he does it very well with Rogue and Wolverine with not much dialogue, with everything that's happening to her. And it doesn't feel angsty. Even though that Rogue is the point of view in X-Men 1, she is most of our point of view. You never feel like you're in a teen angsty drama. I did feel like I was kind of sucked into that with this initially, which would not have bothered me if it was flowing a little bit more from visually, as opposed to kind of what you just said. I felt like they were trying so hard to humanize each character that I felt like I was being manipulated by I'm supposed to care. I mean, but I really don't really care. I want to see what happens to them.
You're pretty much introduced to the group with Magic trying to bully the new girl, and the bullying is so uncreative. And I mean, she points out it's uncreative, but it's so uncreative. You're kind of you're expecting
a lot of tactics.
But I do feel like also the very opening of New Mutants again does the film a disservice, because the opening is extremely high action. There's a little bit of narration, and then boom, you're in this massive fucking action running scene. There's destruction happening everywhere. You don't know what the fuck's going on, and that's it.
Structurally, I'm curious. You made a good point. I'm curious what would have happened if that would have been discovered through flashbacks or some other thing, as opposed to the opening, a few minutes. I don't know. I do feel like I don't want to pick on any of the actors or Josh Boone, though, because again, if you just read a little bit, you're going to see how fucked with this movie was. I don't even think anyone involved knows what this movie, was supposed to be anymore. I think they're all like, well, I guess we got it out. Thank God it just saw the light of day, because it was changed so much in every step. But I don't know. They're not going to make another one, right? That's what it looks like.
I don't know if they can afford everybody now. I mean,
Yeah.
so the story. So, and also we should mention here that while this seems like it could have been an ensemble piece, it really wasn't. This is really Danny's story. So it's the character. It's the character Danny Moonstar comes in from the plantation with the emblem from her dad because a horrific nightmare happened that actually reminded me of Stranger Things, but we didn't see it. So it's sort of they keep trying to, by they I mean Dr. Reyes is trying to convince her it's a tornado, and she keeps hearing growling, so she thinks it's a bear, and she tells this whole thing about everybody has two bears and only one can survive. Who survives? The one you feed. I paraphrase that, but it's Danny's story, and then of course it becomes Danny is the one that's creating all of these powers within everybody to come up, the nightmares and such. It's her fault, so she basically has to solve her own problem, which is a little bit of the Fantastic Beasts problem to me, whereas you create your own problem and then solve them, and that's the movie. But it's okay, that's fine. But it is her story, which is why I wish that we could see more of, for instance, Maisie Williams' character, who is basically just a wolf. Who has great spelling because she's a wolf. But I saw, for instance, the wolf, that we would see the wolf from far away, and it looked so fucking epic. I thought the wolf was going to be like a guardian angel, and then when I found out it was just Maisie Williams' character, I was like, damn it, you know what I mean? There are like all these moments in here where it's like, oh, that seems really powerful and that seems really captivating, and they just didn't quite land. But I was rooting for the characters, so I'm just sort of stuck in this like malaise here in the middle where. Like, I was entertained it was an hour and a half. It wasn't that long, but like, man, what it could have been, you know?
Yeah. That was the overwhelming feeling I had. Like, I wonder what this was supposed to be.
Just for the record,
I also not
anyone watching on video, I haven't gone to sleep while Jeff was talking. For some reason, the camera I'm using has dropped out.
I saw that happen, and I never mind because that just means that I keep going. I have to stretch for time, and I don't mind that. Anyway, and it's not scary, right? Were either of you, because this is a horror film, or at least that's what it's being pitched at. Yeah. The priest was the scariest, right? The priest who was chasing Maisie was the scariest. Was anybody more scared of the bear, even though the bear's huge? Like, I feel like the priest was scarier. What do you guys think?
Yeah, it turned into being way less of a scary movie and more of a mystery. And yet, if that was going to be the case, I think, again, I'm sure Josh Boone was like, well, fuck, if it was supposed to just be a mystery, I would have done something different. It was supposed to be horror, but like you're changing all these things. The mystery wasn't supposed to be front and center. I think he wanted us to know it was her the whole time. It was just supposed to be scarier that it was happening to.
Yeah, we knew
people.
It was her the whole time.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I don't know. I think that is the overwhelming sentiment. I did have a little bit of that vibe that bothers me with young teen drama, where like I feel like they brought in a bunch of focus groups and they were like, does this offend anyone? Is there anything that we missed PC wise? Which is like, James Joyce within the specific lives the universal. I thought it was excellent that we started on a reservation and we were going to follow the tale of this person who doesn't really have a voice in our culture. And then they tried to make this movie about every teen that has ever existed. Every fucking, contemporary issue is going to fit in somehow into their stories. And I was like, God damn it. I didn't need to know that. She was enough for me. I would have lived a minority's tale and I would have learned something without having to have those trials of all of their past that are, maybe not represented well enough, like shoved down my throat. It just felt like it was a little bit of the billboard version and not, I don't know. I have a feeling Josh Boone was trying to make something way more grounded. And they ended up making a Disney version of this film, and that bothered me a little bit.
Dude, there was screenings where they said it's not scary enough, and then Disney was like, "Oh no, it's scary enough. Okay, let's reshoot."
Sure,
a couple
Disney
of
knows better than the screenings. That's right.
And it was,
you're wrong, people. The gaslighting of America, people.
After they finally were like, "Okay, we've settled on what we want it to be. Let's release it." It was like 2 years down the track, and the actors have visibly aged, and they're like, "Well, we can't do fucking reshoots now."
Right.
Not without spending millions of dollars on de-aging.
If I'm Anya Taylor-Joy, I feel bad that I try to compare to Meryl Streep. That's a little rude. But Jennifer Lawrence is probably more apt. And Jennifer Lawrence was stuck in the X-Men franchise. And even with her ex-boyfriend, Nicholas Hoult, who they had a great relationship. But like Jennifer Lawrence did not want to make 4 X-Men movies, while she was getting paid a ton of money to do whatever she wanted to do, basically. And Anya Taylor-Joy, there's no way that if you're Anya, you got to leave this, right? Like, even though that there's potential here for this, she just had a banner year this year. Like, you got to get out.
Yeah, they should just throw it to series. They should let Disney just make a series out of it. I don't think anyone would care if they rebooted the characters and tried it again.
Yeah, I feel bad for Maisie though, because I feel like this could really help Maisie.
Yeah,
and maybe even Charlie.
No, she's doing okay.
Both,
I've seen at least 2 good films that she's been in since.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is the thing, people. If you want to see this movie, watch it for the actors, because I feel like we should be rooting for them. You'll even forgive the fact that there's only one supervisor. Why doesn't anybody else take shifts? Like, I feel like that's an easy thing.
That one supervisor can throw up force fields like a motherfucker, though.
I know, but she has to sleep, right? Like,
yeah, there's a lot of holes like that.
She can do that in her sleep.
Yeah,
just
I know.
Just not what she said. I feel like the message.
It doesn't tank the movie.
It did hit its message though, because pretty much the message is sometimes your giant demon bear just wants to know it's going to be okay.
Yeah, okay, that's the ending basically. But okay,
all right, I'm on myself.
Loud and clear, hit it. I did have a fine time watching it though.
Yeah,
I feel like both of these films I kind of felt similar, but when it finished, I wasn't like, oh, I just wasted an hour and a half. I didn't feel like that at all. It was fine.
I forgot. I mentioned earlier with this has a connection with one of our previous shows. The cinematographer, Peter Deming. He was the cinematographer for, and John will recognize a few of these, Mulholland Drive, Twin Peaks, the new series.
He's a Finch guy? I mean, a Lynch guy?
Evil Dead 2 and Capone.
Wow.
Yeah. And he also shot the Love Guru, which was my #1 worst fucking movie of all time.
Wow.
What a weird spread that guy has. Well, interesting. I'm sure there was a big part of him that was like, I think I know how to make this way creepier. Can we do that? And he was like, nah, the mouse said we're not allowed to make it scary. So
yeah, it's like, I know, let's put them in a nappy and give them a Tommy gun.
Guys, I watched Poltergeist when I was like 6, right? It made me afraid to sleep. Like, what is up with this movie not letting it go full scary? Like, I'm not worried about a bear attacking me in the middle of the night.
Especially because there is a... Like, I am excited to see... I think Marvel is planning with this reboot, the second or third, fourth generation, whatever the fuck it is at this point. Doctor Strange is supposed to be a horror movie. They're trying to switch up the genres.
It is.
So I feel like they missed an opportunity by, like, if I was merging with Fox, if I was buying them, I would say, you know what? Let's test the waters. Let's actually see what happens with a lower budget feature horror movie. Let's see what happens. Let's not go full throttle with one of our bigger characters when I can test a very small market. I don't think the whole world was going to go see this movie, even if it was scary. So
no, but
I don't know why they did this.
The one thing I would tell you though, that, like, if this was released as kids with psychic powers being experimented on in an asylum by A24, it would have done a lot better. Yeah. And it would have come out a lot fucking sooner.
I agree. Still worth watching though. If you're into this genre, if you like superhero movies, I think you'll enjoy watching this one. It's not amazing, but you'll still have
some fun
time.
stuff in there. Like it's not definitely, you're not having fun a lot of the time.
Yeah.
And if you're a fan of 80s and 90s horror, there's going to be some flashbacks there for you.
Yeah,
exactly.
All right, people. So that was the New Mutants. We'll find out pretty soon if it gets nominated for any of these Razzie Awards, etc. But hopefully everybody gets off scot-free, because I don't know if they deserve it. But I think that's going to wrap it up for us today. Let's go ahead and preview our next week, which I know very well to be Judas and the Black Messiah.
I'm looking forward to this
HBO
one.
Max.
I'm going to learn some stuff.
That is going to be it was the best of film, Judas and the Black Messiah. I'm very, very excited about this. HBO Max, and then on Disney Plus, we're going to be talking about Mulan. That is the new one. I love the original one, to be honest with you, but we're going to be talking about the new one, the remake, which is split. People are, yeah. Anyway, all the stuff about Mulan coming up next week. You can go ahead and watch those if you want to, be ahead, so you can
do it.
Follow along with us next week. And that's it. Signing off. 50 episodes. Let's do it.
Woo! Congrats.
To 50 more. Cheers.